The Israeli military says that it has launched a ground operation in Lebanon. The army released this footage of its deployed troops who they say are carrying out limited and targeted operations against Hezbollah. Fighting against the militant group and its strongholds has intensified across southern Lebanon. Meanwhile, in Beirut, massive explosions were heard overnight, and the Israeli army ordered evacuations for many neighborhoods across the capital. Israel's defense minister warned that Hezbollah would pay a heavy price.
Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and I instructed the IDF to act and destroy the terror infrastructure in the contact villages near the border in Lebanon, in order to prevent threats and the return of Hezbollah to the area. Just as was done against Hamas in Gaza, in the areas of Rafah, Beit Hanun, and extensive areas that were thwarted, and is currently being done against the terror tunnels in Gaza.
And earlier, I spoke with Mideast expert H.A. Hellyer. He is a geopolitics and security analyst with the Royal United Services Institute and the Center for American Progress. I asked him, what does Israel's ground invasion signal about its long-term objectives in Lebanon?
In terms of the long-term goals and aims, I think people need to look at history. Israel in 1967 took the Golan Heights ostensibly as a buffer zone to protect itself from Syrian attacks to its northern communities. That was 1967. We are now 2026. Many decades later, it has refused to withdraw. It more or less depopulated the Golan Heights of its Syrian population, leaving a very small number of the 130,000 that were there before the 1967 war. There were only 7,000 or so within a few months. And the Israelis have made it very clear that in the south of Lebanon, Lebanese will not be allowed to return to their homes until the Israelis are satisfied that they've carried out their objectives in terms of providing security for its northern communities. So this shouldn't be seen as a temporary measure at all. I think this fits into a much wider strategy that the Israelis have throughout the region.
Okay, so that's your view of what's going on. Can you tell us? I mean, how are you seeing the legal and the strategic implications, of a so-called buffer zone?
So it's not something in my view. It's frankly what's going on the ground. You've seen the occupation of southern Lebanon go on now for quite some time, even after the ceasefire was agreed. In recent months, they still struck and occupied territory in the south of Lebanon. They do the same in Syria as well, incidentally. So it's not simply a view, it's simply facts on the ground. In terms of the strategic depth that this gives the Israelis, the Israelis have made it very clear that when it comes to Gaza, the West Bank, Lebanon, and Syria, i.e. the neighboring countries, that they intend to hold these zones where the Arabs of these regions will not be allowed to be or will be heavily restricted, and where the Israelis maintain overall security control on the ground. I don't think this is a recipe for any long-term stability, not only in the region, but also in terms of laying down any kind of peaceful relationship between the state of Israel and its immediate neighbors. There's no good in trying to sign deals with countries far away that are not the subject of conflicts with the Israelis, while ignoring those which are closer to home.
I really want to get your take also not only on what's going on in Lebanon and more broadly, but also with the situation in Iran. What escalation scenarios do you envision across the Iran front? Where does this go next?
I hope none. And I hope it doesn't. I hope it goes to de-escalation. But there are potentials for escalation, of course, to take place. When it comes to the escalation ladder already, you've seen that the Trump administration attacked Iranian territory, the Khurg Island, and this came very, very close to really destroying the infrastructure that allows for Iran to export a huge amount of its oil. This, I think, would be a tremendous escalation. When it comes to the Iranians, of course, they've effectively closed, not completely closed, but they've effectively closed the Straits of Hormuz. And their ally, the Houthi militia in the south of Yemen, could do the same in Bab el-Mandeb. If you had both of those waterways effectively closed, it would have tremendous knock-on effects, not only in the region but internationally in terms of energy prices and the supply of oil. And I think that that would be quite dangerous to assume would end well. I think that because of all of this, the Trump administration will move somehow to declaring victory. But then there'll be the added problem of trying to get the Iranians to back down. And I'm not convinced that they will very quickly. I think that the Iranians have decided that this is an existential war that they're in, and that if they do not exact enough of a price now, then they will not be able to guarantee that there shan't be more attacks in the near future.
Okay.
It may be possible for them to actually get that and guarantee, though, in any case.
And through that lens, then how are you seeing Arab governments recalibrating their foreign and defense priorities? Because they're faced with these two simultaneous conflicts.
They're faced with the two simultaneous conflicts, and they're also faced, from their perspective, with two threats. They're faced with the threat of Iran, which has clearly shown that it's willing to strike their territory even when they are not participants in the war. In fact, most of these Arab states, if not all of these Arab states, lobbied the United States quite hard and quite vigorously to ensure that the war did not take place, and then told them, you cannot use our territory if you're going to prosecute this war for that purpose. Absolutely not. It did not protect them from Iranian reprisals and retaliations and strikes on their territory, including our civilian infrastructure. So that's one threat that they're looking at, and I think that they will consider this in a very different format going forward. The second is the state of Israel, which they recognize has a policy of paramountcy, of regional hegemony. They're not keen on that. They don't accept that as a way forward for the region. And their challenge is going to be trying to get away from these two threats while at the same time maintaining their security architecture with the United States and other Western allies. It's a very difficult circle to square.
Can you dig down a little bit further into that for us? I mean, what does all of this mean, do you think, more broadly for the region's future, wider security architecture?
You can't have security architecture that will be stable and sustainable unless it's based on some sort of universally held principles, which ought to be international law. The Iranians have not respected international law. This US-Israeli war on Iran has not respected international law. Israel's campaign of paramountcy in the region, whether it be a genocidal war on Gaza, the occupation of Syrian and Lebanese territory, and so on, that doesn't respect international law either. If we want there to be a sustainable security architecture for the region, then all of the actors in the region will have to uphold that system of law in order to move forward to a stage where you can have genuine regional integration take place under the rubric of common values of legal process going forward. Otherwise, I see more conflict.
H.A. Hellyer in Cairo, thank you for your time.
Thank you.